hit the go live button. We'll all smile. And there it goes. It says we are live on the YouTubes for the Westlake Charter School May 2022 board meeting. Board President Golick, you have the floor.
Thank you, Doctor. I actually don't have to make the normal announcements other than to say if you're watching us on YouTube and want to make a public comment, please email admin@westlakecharter.com and we'll do our best to read that into the minutes. Please keep it to 250 words, and in the subject line, if you could please reference the matter you are making the comment on, that would be great. With that, Amy, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Hope.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Josh.
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Janie.
Here.
Lila.
Here.
Shannon.
Here.
And Jed. Okay.
Perfect. So that bring us to celebrations, right? Must be celebrations.
Oh, sorry, there
Looking
you
at the
go.
board.
Yep, there we go. My apologies.
Who would like to celebrate first? You would think I would know celebrations are first. My brain. Michelle.
I will celebrate that I just saw the promotion invitation, and I actually have kids promoting.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Sean, would you mind going next?
Sure. I will take Michelle's from governance, which is that we had International Festival again. I unfortunately was not able to make it or host a booth like I normally do, but I understand that it was quite an event, and I look forward to going next year.
It was awesome.
Well, I hear you're on the hook for next year no matter what now, so.
Okay.
It's in the notes now.
Now it's in a minute, so you're committed. Josh.
I'm going to celebrate the board and thank the board and everybody for helping out at International Festival with our first ever board booth as we, kind of reach out and try to give the community a hug. And thank you to those that also signed up for
Open houses.
Both of them.
It's open house,
Open house here and at the high school. So it's good. We're trying to make the board a little more visible. I couldn't be there that Saturday. It just didn't work out. So thank you everybody for stepping up. I heard it went fantastic.
It's excellent.
We do have a couple shift changes. I will send you for the open houses from my email earlier. But just sorry, side note real fast. Lila.
I am just going to celebrate the end of the year with our 8th grade class. I have an 8th grade advisory. I haven't been with them for a couple of weeks because of state testing, and I'm returning back to them, and I'm so excited about everything happening for them and the transition to high school. We're starting to get all those names of students who are coming. It's so fun. It's just so exciting. It's a really exciting time.
It is.
Thanks, Lila. Steve, would you like to celebrate?
Just outside on the campus a little bit ago, outdoors, and just reflecting a little bit on how beautiful the campus is. If you take a moment and just look around, right, you just see a great campus. And so just a shout out to everyone who helps with that, from our custodial team to anyone who picks up trash, to Lawn and Order and everyone else. It's just a beautiful place.
Thank you. Janie.
I want to celebrate that my teaching partner and very good friend, Mrs. Erickson, has about one more week of maternity leave left, and I'm very, 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 very excited to have her back by my side, even though it's only for a few more weeks, but I've missed her very much, and I know the kids have missed her, so we're looking forward to that.
So exciting to have Mrs. Erickson coming back. Mrs. Rowe just came back from maternity, which was amazing as well. Yeah.
Shannon.
I will also celebrate International Festival since it was the first one that I was able to go to. And so it was fun to just, I was mostly at the booth, so I didn't get to do or see a lot, but it was fun to just see everyone on campus and see how excited everyone was to be here and participate.
That's great.
I'm going to use my same celebration that I used at governance, and that is one of our former explorers was just named the salutatorian for the graduating class at Intercom High School. And so while I'm lucky enough to know that because I'm friends with his mother, I would certainly welcome anyone out there emailing me their kids' successes in terms of this graduating class, and just to check in and know how our explorers are doing and what we should be celebrating for them. And I'm happy to shout them out at our June meeting if anyone wants to email me at hgolick@westlakecharter.com. But major props to Devin Henderson, and I hope that the night proves to be as exciting as I think it will be.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love that. I've done a ton of celebrations in my slides, but I will give a shout out to all the staff and community members who are involved in our Mental Health Awareness Month. It's just cool. It's great at both campuses to see a focus on mental health awareness for students and staff and for community. And so it's just a nice piece that's going on right now. AW, you want to play?
Yeah. I'm going to steal Steve's from the last meeting because I'm super excited. We have a unit in 5th grade where they learn about King George III, and we have, luckily, we have a very tall man who's able to be King George III. And every year, Steve and I get to go present King George. I'm his crier. Something. Court gesture. I don't know what I
Yeah.
Anyway, I get to go announce his presence to the 5th grade, and they just love it. And he does a whole spiel on it, and it's really cool. And we haven't been able to do it for a while. And we got the request from 5th grade to do it again this year, and I am pumped to see King George III back in action. So. In all his glory. Yeah,
I think
it's
they
a thing.
You do still have the costume, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a whole. It's fun.
No, it's,
We may up it this year, though.
Yeah.
You gonna do some of the songs from Hamilton? Or?
Oh, songs from Hamilton.
they are. I might know they're on at his house all the time, and
It's fun to have those things come back to the kids.
That's good.
I didn't realize how much I miss being ridiculous in front of the kids.
That's the best part.
It is.
You miss that?
Me too.
She's implying it hadn't stopped.
Board comments for items not on the agenda. Seeing none, do we have any public comments at this point? And we will check back in throughout the evening for additional public comments for those out watching.
Seeing none?
No comments yet. That brings us to reports, and Amber with the WAVE report. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
You just gotta turn the little camera on. And you leave the meet muted, but speak into the microphone. Now go to the
Thank you.
YouTubes.
Hello. I think for the first time in 2 years, I have very exciting things to report. As everyone spoke about, International Festival, our first huge event again on this campus, and it was a lot better than I expected. Not that I had, but it was just like we were excited just to be together, but it was fantastic. And so many people came out, even people who hadn't signed up to volunteer. When they heard the call, they showed up and said, I'm here, what can I do? I brought extra things, what else can I get? It was just wonderful. So it was a great event. We have lots of families that are attending field lessons again, which is super exciting. We have a lot of different things happening. We talk about what's happening in 5th grade, but 5th grade's been going on field lessons kind of independently for the last 2 weeks, different classes. And so there's those field lessons happening. 8th grade, we had Sierra Outdoor School, just so many things that parents are starting to kind of dip their toes in again. We have game night happening tomorrow night. If you're listening, make sure you hit up game night in the Oasis at the high school. It's a great outdoor space. I was talking to a lot of our K-8 families over the week who haven't been to our high school.
Yeah.
And they were a little like, are you sure? We're invited. You are invited. If you're listening, please come out. We're excited. It'll be a really laid-back, fun game night. And so that's what kind of we're working towards, is starting to build those events back up. We're putting out an event survey to kind of see what our families want to do again. Do we want to kind of stick with what we did? Do we want to change things up? Let's just see what we can do. So we're excited to create a new calendar of events for next year. We've had 2 fantastic morning coffee talks where we had a lot of parents show up on the campus and just asking questions. A lot of those K2 families who are kind of figuring things out, how we do things and learning more about us. So it's been exciting to really start tapping into that group. So I think we have a lot to be excited about. You know, WAVE is kind of, you know, getting its wings again, and I'm excited to see parents volunteering. So thank you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Shannon, an impact.
We talked about the timeline for creating updating some of our forms to be able to better collect information about student referrals and things like that for our equity database. And then really kind of determined that is a staff-led project, so we assigned that appropriately, and then really started talking about what the role of the committee is, specifically around goal area 3.4, which is WCS. We use the MTSS framework to structure, support, and staff our programs. And so brainstorm a bunch of questions, and we're going to really try and narrow that down and form that into kind of the next white paper or work that we can do to help support
Perfect. Josh, in development.
Yeah, so we did a little bit of promotion for development for the big day of giving on the 5th, but probably the biggest thing is we've kind of pivoted a little bit on Museum of Tolerance, and John, maybe you can help me out with the situation there.
Yeah.
We're just not guaranteed essentially a field lesson at the Museum of Tolerance, correct?
Yeah, we worked with the Museum of Tolerance all year to try to schedule a high school trip to the Museum of Tolerance. They're coming back from the pandemic maybe a little slower than we are, and we've taken our time. They just had a real hard time getting their school tours section open, and we could go to the Museum of Tolerance and just barn bash the door and go in and see the museum, but the actual like high school tours, legit behind the scenes with this global experience piece that we really wanted for our kids just isn't available yet. And so the high school team has pivoted and kept that commitment to a global leadership experience. So at the end of this year, rather than going to the Museum of Tolerance, they're going to do a leadership ropes course piece with all of the freshman class, then bring them back to a leadership seminar in like at the school site, and they're going to do bring in some outside speakers, do some leadership fish bowls, and then they're going to do a lock-in overnight for this culminating experience. Spend the night at the school right before we go into summer break. But we expect the Museum of Tolerance to be back on the table as their organization ramps back up and reopens their school tours for next year. So we will still be doing a end-of-year culminating global leadership field lesson experience. It just isn't going to take place the way it was before. A part of the Museum of Tolerance trip was also to visit UCLA while we were in LA, and so now they're going to be doing a college tour about 3 weeks before the end of the year, which is coming right up.
Yeah, so because of that, we pivoted just a little bit in the sense that we're not promoting the Museum of Tolerance, but raising the global leaders and doing something off-site. So we're still continuing to raise funds with that goal in mind until the Museum of Tolerance comes back on. And in the meantime, we got flyers in for the State of Natomas. They were in everybody's bag. There were hundreds of business leaders there that hopefully looked through their bag and saw everything. So we've done that, and then also getting the booths going. And I just want to thank Ashley and Nirali, who are on our team, who really have just shouldered this whole fundraising campaign and are doing a heck of a job. And I like it because we're growing our committee outside of the board, and the two that we have are hitting home run. And we're working on social media coordinators. We want to get a social media coordinator, and I'd like to just try to grow this committee as much as possible. So basically, we've just got a well-oiled machine, after a couple years as far as the fundraising goes. We've got enough bodies that we can, as people come in and out, we're not losing any traction. So it's an exciting time.
Thanks, Josh. Sean.
So we met one day early this month, thanks to people being flexible because of my schedule needing to change. So we started discussion of revising or looking at revising our financial reserves policy, and that is an ongoing discussion. And then we had a couple of closed session items, which they were closed sessions, so I can't say any more about them, but that was their agenda.
Thank you. And then in terms of the governance committee report, I'll go ahead and save that because what we did tonight at the committee is on the board's agenda. But another really good conversation was had tonight, and I always appreciate when that committee comes together. With that, Dr. Ike.
Well, hi, everybody. Hey, I got a little feedback from the audience members watching right now that we're a little hard to hear if we're away from our mics. So just a reminder that when we're speaking into a mic, you're almost giving a little right there. Okay, get close to it if you're going to talk into it. All right, let's have some slides. Let's have some fun. I got about 117 slides. So just take an hour or three.
Do I need to start the timer, Dr. Ike?
It used to be a thing. Now I feel like
we have to get some of these things back.
I feel like now we're just rolling. Let's see what happens. We're going to start with obviously some celebrations because there's a ton of them. I can't believe all the celebrations you're about to see really happened in the last 25 days, and it's hard to believe. There's been a lot happening. So we had students in New York and Washington, D.C., and rocking Broadway musicals. They saw Wicked, the Statue of Liberty. Our trip advisors this year. We had Melissa Grunholtz. We had Monica Darris. Just a really good group. They went out and had a blast. Our kids were just amazing. And everywhere our kids went, the tour guide said, hey, we do this all the time. We see kids all the time. Your students are some of the best we've ever seen. Our students are inquisitive and respectful and kind. Our students did a great job. Our official esports is up and running. Here they are. If you've never been to an esports match, right? You've probably been to a soccer game or a softball game, but have you ever been to this? This is kids playing video games. But it's awesome. If you go in there, the energy is buzzing. They're coaching each other, rooting each other on. The smell of victory is in the air. The crushing defeat when someone goes down. It is a cool vibe in there. It's one of the classrooms in the high school, and it's well worth swinging by. Those chairs that they're sitting in, we should bring them to a board meeting. The video gamer chairs, they are awesome.
We also have a former explorer.
Oh my gosh, yes, Nico Korvink right there is one of the the assistant coach right there, and Coach Eichley is at the helm. But when I walked in there one day, Eichley was like in the back row chilling, and Nico was on the floor. So it was great, man. It was great. Yeah, Nico Korvink, former West Laker. Sierra Outdoor Schools went off to a 3-day 6th grade science camp and are the first explorers to date since 2005. Went on a field lesson and got snowed on. Like, that is pretty epic for us to talk about, not for them to experience, because none of them packed for it. However, there they are, hiking through the snow, hiking through the forest. Jeanette Mixix was like just in her element. She was loving that. So yeah, the explorers went out and did Sierra Outdoor Schools. We've all celebrated this, but it was phenomenal. We got to give it up to Amber Husted and the whole crew who organized the International Festival. I'm telling you, I know we thought, oh, this is kind of our comeback festival. It's our first time out. It's going to be smaller and kind of more chilled than like what we're used to. I think it might have been our best one ever. It was off the charts. People were smiling ear to ear. You couldn't go 3 square feet on campus without bumping into somebody who was like, this is so great. It's so great to see people in person. Like, we are back officially as of that day. And so hats off to Wave who made it happen and the whole team. It was epic. So much good stuff. So much good food. And here are our 5th graders out at the FEYA field lesson, right? It's a 2-part field lesson where FEYA sends scientists into the classroom. They talk about taking samples of pond water and what we're gonna do with those samples. Then they go out to FEYA and engage in some scientific exploration, and the kids dig it. So, you guys, it was 6 months ago, like 3 months ago. January, we're in the midst of Omicron, thinking, are we ever going to get back to anything that feels like normal? And this slideshow is like International Festival, Washington, D.C., FEYA, paper roller coasters, like State of Natomas. There we are, State of Natomas, great picture. The whole crew, there's the only people in that picture. Nobody cropped out at all. It is our team went out to the State of Natomas and got a chance to listen to our local political leaders talk about what's happening in Natomas. And one of the things that's happening in Natomas is we just opened an aquatic center, and that's where it was held at. There we are, all the aquatic center. And I can't wait till next year at the State of Natomas where we get to say, hey, guess what else is coming around here these days? Westlake Charter School High School now has sophomores, or whatever it is we get to announce at the next State of Natomas. Let's keep showing up there and being part of this growing community. This is so cool because College Week and Spirit Day, kind of come together where we get everybody celebrating colleges. The high school did a great job. They decorated doors, and they had a college door decorating competition. But here at the K-8, all of us were wearing our college swag. But I love the little kids out there and the parents posting on Facebook, hashtag WCS Spirit Week or Spirit Day, because, future explorers even were getting in on the gig. And I love this because on the far left, that's Mona Bain's 5th grade class, really talking about what it is to select a college and attend a college. So it's really important that now that we have a high school, we're talking about college and career readiness, it doesn't start in 9th grade. It starts right when you step on campus. So we love it. Now, I don't if CASP testing is a big celebration for a lot of people, but I got to tell you, there's Whitney O'Hagan in her office with 8 billion little snacks for CASP week. There's our little theme, let your knowledge take flight, because nothing happens at Westlake Charter School without a cool theme. And our kids and our teachers, after not taking the CASP test for a couple of years, knocked it out of the park, walked into testing environments, peeked in, calm, Everybody's got, got a good environment. Kids were engaged. The CAT, the computer automated portion of the test, they shortened it from like 52 questions down to 24 questions. Best move California's ever made. It was just like, oh, am I done? Oh, I didn't lose endurance. I think, coming off the pandemic, we're all worried about scores dropping. I don't know. We'll see what happens. A shorter test, I think, is going to produce more accurate results. Just want to celebrate. Sports just wrapped up. The next slide is a sports banquet. But, we're at this part of the year where there's no high school sports happening right now because seasons have closed out. But look at this. You opened a high school this year, and a year ago today, we're like, no, we're going to have sports. It's going to happen. Are the uniforms in yet? Do we have coaches? We're building the plane about to take off. Well, here we are at the end of the first year, and we crushed it. I mean, what an amazing year we had in sports. All these joyful opportunities for these kids to compete at incredible levels, and it's only going to get better and better year after year. So big shout out to all of our coaches and all the administrators. John O'Connor, amazing athletics director, who made this year happen for all of these athletes right here. And here's those athletes, those coaches, and those families celebrating at our spring sports banquet out there in that beautiful oasis. Such a great space. Just super joyful. Speaking of joyful, the After School Live Bike Club is partnered with Jibe, and it is like, hey, do you want to ride a bike after school? Well, we're making a club out of it. Come on out. It's free. 5th, 6th, and 7th grade is invited. Didn't really realize it had started. I was walking down the hall in like a bicycle gang, like a Harley Davidson gang, but on BMX bikes. Came around the corner, and my first instinct was, hey, no riding bike. Oh, there's 30 of you. Okay. It was great, right? It's great. Nate Malov, 5th grade teacher, is out there helping lead it, and it's so joyful, man. He's loving being out there, helping kids learn how to bike safely and enjoy this outdoor activity. And May is Bike Month. So super appropriate. Look, if you've never felt appreciated in your life, just come work here for 1 week of the year. I mean, Wave is like ridiculous. We love you so much, Wave. I mean, there was food. Everybody gained 3 pounds. There was food everywhere. There was appreciation notes. There was cards. There was, hey, tell a staff member a joke day. Kids were walking up, hey, we're not, I'm like, where's this coming from? It was just great, man. Everywhere you looked, all day, every day, people were feeling the love and feeling appreciated, staff appreciating each other. We do that little Google form that I think you're all aware of. We merged the notes at the end of the year. We had over 2,000 individual entries. Like, just hold on. Like, a Google form with 2,000 people who typed in something nice and clicked submit. And those 2,000 entries got merged into these individual nice little letter-style emails for each staff member telling them who said something to them about how they feel about them. It's such a nice community. So thank you to everybody out there who's involved in that. And thank you, really shout out to our Wave team for partnering on that. So important. Yeah, we're still going with celebrations, just in case you're wondering. I told you a lot of them. So we just had our first WASC visit, an initial WASC visitation. It was done on Zoom. I've done some WASC work in the past. Never had a virtual visitation, and I'll talk about it in tonight's show. But the celebration is that picture right there. You'll notice there are staff members, and there are board members, and there are students as a part of our WASC accreditation visit, which is so cool. Our students were amazing. Our board members were amazing too, but our students were amazing. And we'll talk more about that later. And if you haven't read it, you are missing out on something. The very first edition of the Expedition, the Westlake Charter High School newspaper has launched. It's right now a digital copy, and they're actually about to come out with the second edition. And they're going to be printing it out periodically, so there'll be a print edition as well. But it's super exciting. Please read it. There's some opinion pieces. There's some news pieces. The kids do a great job. They're journalistic. You can really hear their voices from article to article. Oh, I like the way this person writes. I like the way this person writes. It's great. It's good, really good stuff.
Dr. Ike, where could board members find that?
It published in this week's Westlake Weekly, in the Parent Weekly. It was published in the Staff Weekly last week. If you all have access, you do have access to the Staff Weekly by logging into your email account. So yeah, it's in the weekly. It's really cool. It's really cool. I think the just a shout out to Capricia Alston, who's the journalism teacher. And she's doing a phenomenal job. Her kids are really killing it. Okay, am I done? No, I'm just starting. Now let's get on to the actual report. There's a lot of celebrations, but I got to tell you that it's that time of year. But this time last year, it wasn't really that time of year. We were still trying to muddle through a lot of stuff. Now the celebrations are thick. So let's talk strategic actions. I think Monica slipped that picture in. Thank you, Monica.
It's the other picture I want in this presentation.
Yeah, Steve put that one in there.
Thank you.
So we're talking about planning and executing some end-of-year activities. We're talking about some staffing updates and some planning for future high school facility conversations that we want to just kind of put on the table for. These are the type of actions that we're working on behind the scenes that are worth talking about at the board level. I mean, certainly all of these amazing things are about to happen, and we just want you to know that staff are really neck deep in executing the end-of-year activities. We would love to be spending a ton of time thinking about next year and plotting out what's happening. But we're like, let's be honest, we got a high school dance, a middle school dance, a K-8 open house, a high school open house, field lessons in 5th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade, a field day coming up, and an in-person promotion. It's exciting. You all have an invitation on your desk right now as board members to please join us on the stage at our in-person promotion on June 8th at 9 a.m. Out on the field. And it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be well conducted, and it's going to be filled with student celebrations. So we hope you can make it out on that day. Very busy calendar. There's even a few more things on that little icon over there that aren't on this list. Just lots going on. Please, you're all welcome as board members to show up to any of these events and be a part of the community. We'd love to have you out here. The next strategic action is talking about staffing. So we are looking ahead to 22-23 in the fall of 22-23. If you haven't read the letter on the right-hand side of the screen, it is an introductory letter, a letter written by an amazing human being who is now our brand new kindergarten through 12th grade director of student support services. As you all know, Christina Ike, who's really developed this directorial position over the last 8 years, is stepping down at the end of the year, and she is going to be replaced by Mr. Kevin Seamus. We had a very competitive round of interviews, and Mr. Seamus sent this letter to our staff. It's in the staff weekly if you haven't had a chance to read it. It's a great letter. You should read it. It really reflects who this person is. In this letter, he calls out what he thinks he knows about our organization already, and what he calls out are things that I think you would want anybody joining our organization to call out. He says, I walk through your campus, and I see joyful learning is real. I felt engaged right away. I feel the kindness of the staff. I feel the connectedness of the community. Read that introduction from Kevin, and I'll make sure by July or August that I get him out here at a board meeting to meet all of you. I think you'll love him. He is a 20-plus year Spanish teacher, then went into administration and spent almost a decade in administration, and he currently has a role in his district that looks much like this role right here. I think it's actually a different title, Director of Ed, but very similar job description. I think he's going to be a great fit. Going on with staffing, I got a couple of staffing special announcements. I'm not sure totally public, but I'm going to throw them out right now in front of the public. Here it comes. Taking our 10th grade biology position. You probably never heard of her. Very quiet, very behind the scenes. Jeanette Mixitz. I don't know if you know Jeanette Mixitz, but she's amazing, and she is one of our beloved teachers, and she's maybe the biggest science nerd any of us ever have known, and she is just elated to be taking that 10th grade biology position at the high school. So she's going to go from 6th grade to 10th grade. Well, then, oh my gosh, who's going to be in the 6th grade? You'll never fill that position with anybody as awesome as, wait a minute, Sally Hubbard is going to roll from 5th grade into 6th grade. So just like a big shout out, we have several positions that we have filled with new candidates, and I would love to introduce you to all of our new people. But I thought it'd be special to acknowledge, like, these are two of the most loved human beings you ever met, and they're filling big roles for us right now, and we love that. We love that Jeanette Mixis was a 4th grade teacher, took the big stretch. She'll never make it in 6th grade. Oh my gosh, she's amazing in 6th grade. She'll never she's going to kill it in 10th grade. And now Sally's coming up. So we love that. We love that part of Westlake, people moving on up to different areas. Positions that have been retained. Right now, we have no end-of-year resignations, knock on wood. But like right now, when we look across the organization, there aren't any of the teaching staff who are like, hey, not coming back next year. We've already done our intent to return. So all of the people who are here today, as you look around and eyeball them, we think they're coming back. There may be maternities, there may be partial leaves. We do have a seventh grade, two seventh grade full-time teachers who are actually going to split a position next year, half and half, but full retention across the board. What I think is really exciting, well, they're all exciting, but I think that founding freshman class, it would be telling if like after 1 year, everybody's like, oh, we're out of here. Everyone's like, let's roll. We got a good thing going. So it's very exciting, especially after the couple years we've had. And we had some mid-year resignations. We know that the industry suffered. And so I thought, coming into this end of the year, is that going to continue? But it looks really good right now. Open positions still. We do have a high school assistant principal position that we have second round interviews on tomorrow. So we're super excited about that. We have a 10th grade ELA position. They had first round today and a second round coming up. We do have a 7th grade humanities position, a half a PE position, and a half school psychologist position. I show you the open positions really because I feel like we're a little late right now. I think the whole admin team is like, man, I would have liked to have this buttoned up already, but it's tough out there. It's really interesting right now. I don't know each of your industries and what it looks like where you're at, but the pools are thin. Not thin. I just mean that not as many applicants. We would open up a K-5 pool, like, hey, who's interested in work? You get 100 applicants because people are like, we want to work at Westlake. To see 30 applicants, which is still plenty, is just like, very interesting what's happening out there in the education staffing world. So I call it out. I am 100% confident that we're going to fill these positions and fill them well. But we're also not afraid to say no. I'm just put that out there. Like we've had a few rounds of people, and we're like, well, didn't find somebody in that round, so it's okay. Let's repost that, grade level position. Any questions about the staffing piece before I move on? Either Kevin Seamus or any of the positions? Cool. Very exciting. Hey, I want to talk a little planning for future high school facility. Now, it's funny, right, because we're all going to closed sessions and hush-hush talking about, future planning. Are we going to be buying, whether it's land or whatever. But in reality, we are taking strategic actions right now for things that aren't coming to fruition yet. And so I want to talk through some of the strategic planning actions because if we do move in the next 60, 90, 180 days toward purchasing, for example, a piece of land, we have to have a lot of pieces in place in advance. And so some of the things that we are working on behind the scenes right now is crafting communications for our community. As we come out and say, we have decided this is what we would like to do, we need to have the communications in the tank, right? And ready to go, send to all channels, right? So we are working on that in the background, even though you might be out in the community being like, well, I don't see anything. We're working on it. We just aren't releasing it until the time is appropriate, right? The development committee has talked about launching a capital campaign, and that's just kind of been put on pause for a moment until the time is right. So there's work happening in the background. We really need to collaborate with our community in several ways, not just communicate with our community, but collaborate with our community. When we moved into this school, we put in a full year of traffic mitigation collaboration with folks from Rockmont Circle and from Heritage Park. We sat at the table, remember, over on Pebblewood saying, hey, we're moving to your neighborhood. And we built that whole website, Ways to Westlake, and we're going to have to do it again. Wherever we land is going to cause like a few more cars and a little bit more foot traffic and maybe some skateboards and probably some, rollerblades and some bicycles. So we've got to rebuild our collaboration with our community regarding any type of traffic mitigation. We're going to have to jump in and redesign our building specifications. We're going to have to ask our community, hey, teachers, what would you like a classroom to look like? Hey, parents, what do you want the facility to include? Hey, community, let's talk about noise control. All of our building specifications, we designed our building specs really in 2015, 16. We got to redo that, right? What's the next piece looking like? And then we really got to collaborate with our community around imagining what's possible. Like, we can do anything we want. We can't do everything we want. Steve's indicating we definitely want a little skate feature on that property. I agree. So it's really going to be exciting, and I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but I do want to acknowledge as a strategic action that this work is happening in the background, that we're planning communications, we're planning to collaborate with communities around traffic mitigation, that we're doing all these things. They're important first steps to put in place even before we take action on buying anything. Any questions on that? All right. Updates. We did our financial reports in the Thomas Unified School District. We got a WASC update, talk a little parent survey and enrollment. There's a picture of Janie and Hope right there, and my shadow at the bottom. Very good. I've got to be. Oh,
my favorite
hey, there's the picture. It's me and Mike Wazowski.
Isn't that the best picture,
right there.
Sean?
All right. I'm on TV. Yeah, you made the picture. That is my favorite picture ever. Steve sent this picture to me this morning. I just was
It made
like,
my whole morning when I got
That's
this
great.
picture. Walking around the house, hey Matt, look at
Oh,
Steve.
that's great.
Wait,
You-
where's Steve?
so
Steve's
we
the
always-
body.
We always get a picture at the presentation where I look like Piglet and he looks like Tigger.
Tigger.
Like, I mean, it just. But this time we didn't get the picture, and so we pulled this off the video. Or Steve pulled off the video. It's so funny. There's Steve, but you can't see him. We had a
Do you
great.
feel like you can make eye contact with anybody?
Well,
Well-
I'm even standing back like 2 feet, which is even like,
But
perspective-wise.
in all fairness, the camera's up high, the camera's shooting down. In reality, Steve, you could make eye contact with the board, correct?
Oh, that was
Just.
it went well. It was,
No,
So
I know.
I look. I would like to give a shout out to Steve Corvig. Not only does he do a brilliant job of making sure that we are financially sound and that we have healthy financial outlooks and a positive certification, but every year we go out to the Thomas Unified School District and present our financials, and every year every financial officer presents for every charter school. And Steve is great at what he does with the books, but nobody presents better than Steve Corving, and you all experience it all the time here. Look, he's the full package. He could do the work, but then put it up on stage as well. He's a storyteller, and he always gets a smile, and he always represents Westlake in a way that you all will be proud of, and that is that he opens up with this opening slide where he walks through by name all the people that he interacts with in the Thomas Unified School District throughout the entire year, from payroll to bookkeeping to like all the way through, and thanks everybody and shows gratitude for every one of those people. And he's the only one that does it. He's the only one that gets up there and goes, hey, I'd like to thank the payroll tech two named so-and-so. Like, he knows every single person. And I just go, man, that's so Westlake. So big shout out to Steve Corbing. We killed it last night. Lisa Kaplan, she likes to give us the questions to answer in advance. She always gets us the questions in advance to answer. And she did. She got us the questions yesterday morning. And we answered them in writing and got them back to her by 5 o'clock p.m. Yesterday. So it was good timing on that. And we have a positive certification. So good job to the team for making that happen. Any questions on that? That's fun. Yeah. Our WASC update. So WASC, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, the accrediting body for all schools west of the Mississippi, as far south as Guam, right? So colleges, universities, high school, if you issue credit, you should be accredited, right? We now have a high school. We're going to issue transcripts with transferable credits, and so we're going to become accredited by WASC. Their initial WASC report, I think I reported last month, was somewhere around 65, 75 pages. Thank you to all of you who participated in that. Our WASC visiting chair out of San Diego has some charter experience. She read it. She made some notes on it. She liked it. Now she wants to meet with board members, parents, teachers, administration, and students to say, hey, I read your report. In the report, it says your governing body operates like this. Tell me about that. And then she goes through the day and says, oh, yeah, I read your thing. I talked to your people, and it sounds like you do what you say you do. Here is the outcome from that. So we had our initial visit this last week. The next steps are in July, we'll get a report back from WASC. We anticipate that we're going to get the full 3 years until our self-study is due. That would be a good thing for us. We would, if you're allowed 3 years, that means you are probably writing down things that look like that's what you're doing. We would anticipate an annual update to the initial report as we grow. So right now, the report says we serve 9th graders. Next year, we'll just do a quick little update that says, now we serve 9th and 10th graders. And if there's any major overhauls, you would note that, but we wouldn't, you'd make notes. Oops, I thought there was more on that slide. So we would just annually update that report, and then in year 3, we'd have our full self-study. And a full self-study is creating committees for each of the 5 sections of WASC. So legitimately, these 9 people are going to do a self-study around the idea of curriculum. There's these 26 guiding questions, and they would go and find evidence that we are or are not able to answer those 26 questions, and then that would get built into that chapter of the report. You'd have this big report. Then we'd have a multi-day visit where they would walk around, meet with those committees, observe the campus and things like that. So very exciting stuff. Your team did a great job. Big shout out to Emily Batten for orchestrating it, and big shout out to those who participated. Sean and Hope were there. Several of our teachers were there. MacGyver, are you on there? I think you're on there, right? Yeah, MacGyver's on there. And the kids were just amazing. Just amazing. Any questions about WASC?
No, but can I make a comment?
Please.
So it was very odd. I did this from another high school in the state of California, so it was very weird to be doing it from Tokay High School in Lodi at the time. But what I really want to comment on is we did get briefly into a board self-study requirement that's going to be part of this WASC report. And we did receive kudos for the work our board's done in already setting up our governance structure and the committees we have, reviewing our bylaws, doing all those things we'll do later tonight and then at our annual meeting. And so I just want to take this moment to celebrate the board and for all the work it does, because it definitely let us be on the best foot forward when it came time for Sean and I to tell our, I'm going to get it wrong, evaluator? Visiting chair. I'm never going to get that right. Our visiting chair, what this board does and how we support the school and how we believe in this program. So thank you all.
Yeah, nice work, everybody. I want to dive into the parent survey, and I'm just going to show what I think is an interesting comparison over time. You'll see under the areas of innovation, collaboration, academic, SEL, and communication, the question, and then our mean score for that area. Remember, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, 1 being low. And I added the fall of 2019 because I thought, hey, in the fall of 2019, we were about as, smooth as we were running. And then the fall of 2020, like things were a little weird. And now we're back. And I just want to show you the fall of 2021 and the winter of 22. And I know we'll do another one here at the end of spring. But I'm really impressed with what happens across these categories. So you can see we had an average score of 9.2. It didn't dip down a year later, and it stayed constant here. So this idea of how would you rate Westlake's openness to innovation and willingness to continually improve, that's one of our stronger areas. And I think even coming out of the pandemic, people were like, yeah, I get it. You guys are pretty innovative, and you tried to do things right. So, okay, check. Rate Westlake's efforts to create opportunities for your family to collaborate with the school. So like this took a little dip right here. We didn't have families on campus. We did, so I think we would have expected that dip. I maybe would have expected that to be even lower. Surprisingly, I think it could have been, but it came right back up. I mean, these are 2019 levels. Here we are. Really, when you took this survey, we're just kind of in the middle of Omicron. So I think if we would have taken this survey the day after the International Festival, I don't know if you get higher than 10, but people seem to feel, as I look across these ratings, people seem to feel encouraged as this year goes on. The ratings seem to dip up just a little bit. Rate Westlake's ability to prepare students with academic readiness. Interestingly, it was 8.8. By here it was an 8.9, and now it's a 9.0. It's just interesting, right, that we feel a little more confident today than even then across the board, which is an interesting, I don't know, maybe people are feeling hopeful coming out of the pandemic. I read through, all of the comments and did the analysis on the qualitative, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment, but I think these quantitative scores are really interesting. I would have expected more of a hit in all those areas. On the social emotional side, again, we're experiencing growth beyond where we were in the fall of 19, and which is interesting. We know how many pieces we've put in place since the fall of 2019, but it's also in response to an increased trauma. So I, again, would have thought, well, maybe people would have recognized, but there seems to be recognition that work is going well. And this one's interesting because it's always our strongest communications, and it really is and continues to be. So, it's only quantitative data, though. It's only like people checking little boxes. The people who check the boxes also matter, right? The N, the number is important. So, I don't think as many people are taking the survey. I'd like to push really hard end of the year this year for a strong end of year survey rate so we can get, a couple of hundred families, make it more representative and see how it goes. I know as we look toward the impact committee's goals and tonight's board goals, and we talk about producing annual data that's clearly produced in the same way every time so we can analyze it and determine our student needs. This might be one of those pieces that we dive into and go, okay, well, how can we fine tune this to make sure we're looking at exactly what we want to look at? Just looking at some of the narrative analysis, the number one it consistently is keep it up. You're doing a great job. Thank you, Westlake. We love Westlake. And that's great. So for all of you out there putting that in there, thank you. We love you. Look, it's nice because it counterbalances, some of the hey, I'm struggling with this and I would like you to respond to this issue. But it is nice to get a lot of that, hey, keep it up, Westlake. We appreciate you. It's interesting. We talked about bringing the community together at this board, and then you go into the winter of 22 parent analysis, and it is echoing what this board talked about at about the same time. That was our February meeting when this board said, hey, we got to reconnect this community. And right around the same time in January of 22, a month earlier, the community is saying that, hey, we want to be back on campus. We want events. We want festivals. I mean, it's right in the middle of Omicron, and people are like, oh my gosh, get us back together. So again, I think if you take this survey the day after International Festival, everybody's like, this is awesome. So I think we're doing some of the things that people want, including parent involvement. I put that in area 2 as well, because we've had more volunteerism since then, right? We've opened up on-campus volunteerism. We are only 22 days from the end of school. At Coffee Talk, there was a conversation around, hey, can we do in-class volunteerism? And coming up on open house and all the things that we're doing, leadership and I have discussed, let's go big and do in-class volunteerism in the fall and relaunch it as a big deal. But the onboarding process in the last 20 days of school to bring people into the classroom, we would prefer to just leave things as they are. So although we're maybe not being as responsive to the parent involvement piece right there today, that is a big launch for us in the fall, and I hope everybody can respect that going forward. Expanding experiences, again, it's funny because we just celebrated all these field lessons, but this just echoed inside of the survey. Hey, when can we start doing some of the things that we all love about this school? What about field lessons? What about the Aloha to Kinder? What about these big, events that we all love? Can we start gathering again on campus? So, and again, I think we're back on track for that. And then the social, emotional, and behavioral support is called out. Quantitatively, there weren't as many of those. It falls out in number 4, so it's the least number. But there was enough to eke it into the top 4 where people were saying, hey, my kid's struggling. I need you to know that. And you guys do an okay job, but we need more. And it's good for us to know, right? We've doubled our counseling staff, right? We're increasing our school psychologist staff this year. Our MTSS staff has the highest caseloads our TOSAs have ever had, right? Everybody's got the highest caseloads we've ever had, and still people are saying, hey, we need a little more help out here. And we love it. We'll keep doubling down on that and putting those supports in, so it's good for us to know that. Questions about the parent survey results? I'd love to, remember we switched to the mean score, I think it was 2 years ago. And so the mean scores, although they don't look like they grow a lot, 0.1 or 0.2, it's actually significant growth when you're growing a couple of points like that on this mean scale, because I also built it out with percentage of people who answered an 8 or above, and all of those had jumps across the board. So I think that's really important to us as well. But I like this metric, and I like it to bring it back again with mean scores. Any questions, thoughts? Any hey, that makes me think? Oh, you know what I recognize is? What do you notice? What do you wonder, Janie? Right into that microphone. Get right into that.
Comment on the academic readiness piece, because I feel like, although that seems surprising, but remember that our parents were very much involved in students' academic
Yeah.
readiness, right? So it used to be, as a parent, you're up here at your 50-foot level seeing things and obviously being supportive, but they were thrown into very many teaching positions. And I think when you're in that position, you can really see what Westlake is doing and how they're doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that I was thinking about that and just really thinking that, yeah,
Yeah.
You're sitting down with your third grader, right? And really understanding, oh, they really know, this is a basic unit, like, you really can see it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe that could have been that, a part of that piece.
Yeah, because during regular school times, it's like, how was school? Fine. Okay, sounds like they're doing a good job down there. But yeah, there was a moment where you were the teacher. You were the para-educator in the kitchen on distance learning. Okay, I'll dive forward to enrollment updates. I wanted to just kind of walk through a couple of pieces that we traditionally look at. That 5th to 6th grade matriculation is a big deal. I always tell this story. When I first got to Westlake Charter School, my first all calls were always, hey, good evening, Explorer families. Hey, do you know any 6th graders? Yeah, we got openings. And as recently as 2018, we were still losing about 25% of our 5th graders to 6th graders, right? So you're losing 26, 28, 30 5th graders who didn't go to our 6th grade. And this year, it looks like we have 7. Last year we had 12. In 2018, we had 26. That's a big deal for us. That says that our K-5 families are like, well, yeah, why would I leave, right? We're a K-8. I think that's very, very interesting. Our 8th to 9th grade matriculation, we don't have very much data. You know, we got 1 year, and it was the big opening inaugural year, and it was in the middle of a pandemic when the other schools weren't really open either. So while we had 77 initial matriculators from 8th to 9th grade in our inaugural year, this year we currently have 66 confirmed and 13 who are currently unconfirmed. They're like the little fence sitters, you know what I mean? On top of that, I just want to tell you where the other ones are going. 26 are going to Intercom, 6 are going to private schools, 1 is going to PFAA. Interestingly, I think the board members who've been looking at this type of data for years can remember when it was, PFAA and NP3. Let me hit click. There's no NP3. Really interesting. So if you're going to pick a small charter school in Natomas and you're currently an 8th grader, it looks like you'll pick us. That's an interesting storyline 2 years in a row. So again, this is only the second time we've done this, so we don't know, nothing's good or bad unless compared. So we have 66 confirmed. Last year we had 77. What does that mean going forward? Well, let's track the data and find out where we can do better. So we have 66 confirmed, 77 last year, 13 unconfirmed, and 51 from lotteries, right? We had 2 add this week because we just launched a Facebook campaign. As we started getting down to the 66 and 51, we're like, okay, we got spaces open. We're not at 125. We're not at 150. Let's push on Facebook. The minute we launched this Facebook ad, we've had 2 new applications this week. So your total 9th grade class right now is 117. 125 really is like that, ironically, that magic number that we never thought we would get to, and we exceeded it last year. But remember, we exceeded it and it came down to 133. Okay, 10th grade enrollment, we are retaining 132 of our 133 students, which is a great number for us. Okay, check. We got 11 new from lotteries, which puts you at 143 sophomores. So we decided to go to 145, 125 in our numbers because we don't know what happens junior year. It's a strange game where we really want to get to 500 and we don't want to overshoot it. I know financially, the finance committee is like, you go ahead and overshoot it. Look, for master schedule numbers, we're not sure. Now, we only lost 1 sophomore. We didn't know that yesterday, so we let 11 sophomores in, and we're like, oh, nobody left. Okay, great, but it may change the way we do business in the coming years. This is a game of, like, how many people typically stay, how many people typically come. So we just don't know yet, but it's really important to us to track the data in this way. So if you have 143 10th graders and 117 9th graders as of today, you're sitting at 260. Steve and I are budgeting right now at 250. Because, again, the data is super soft and we don't know. We're going to continue to push on Facebook. We're going to continue to talk to the 13 unconfirmed 8th graders who are fence sitting right now. If 6 of them fall off the fence into our pool, right, it takes you up to like $123. If you get 2 more off of Facebook, you're sitting on 125. Now you got 125. Now you're at 260. Now you're at 260, 75. okay, pause. Do we adjust the budget at first interim? Let's take a look. But right now, everything's squishy until people arrive on day one. And I'm going to keep coming back to you, let you know where we're at. I feel okay at 117. I'd rather be at 135 right now to come down over the summer. But it's different this year. We seem to have a stronger hold on the people who have said yes. They seem to have like actually said, yes, I'm coming. Whereas this time last year, people were like, yes. Are you really opening? Where's the location? You haven't told us location yet? We can't take a tour? What's an oasis? So, whereas the people who have said yes this year can come over and actually pick up a packet and tour the facility. So, we will see. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns about the data? You okay with me bringing it back? Yeah, I mean, the enrollment piece is really fascinating. I tell you, the students who've elected to come to our school, and MacIver would tell you because she's there every day, we got the greatest freshman class in the history of freshman classes, and I just look at them about to become sophomores, and I go, oh, this is going to be just phenomenal. We're going to double the size of our school in 1 year, and then it's going to double again in 2 years. And it's a really interesting place. We brought a high school to life this year. It's real. It's a thing. And then we're going to double it next year, and it's going to be like starting all over again. It's going to be a wild couple of years. All right. I think that's all I've got. I'll take it back to you.
Sure.
Is that not true? Yeah, no.
I'm just teasing. You were just under an hour.
That's good.
That's
Feel
good.
about that.
You should. There's a lot of really important information. That brings us to our consent agenda, but before we take action on this, John, would you mind checking for any public comments?
Oh, I got a comment that says, it's only been an hour since the meeting started. That was my presentation.
It's, okay.
It's on YouTube. I will read it into the record.
I did not start my timer. That's my fault.
No comment.
Thank you. So we have 4 items on tonight's consent calendar or agenda. Are there any questions, any items to be pulled, or a motion to approve? Thank you, Josh. Is there a second? Thank you. Amy? Yes. Thank you. So we do have a number of discussion items this evening. The first one being the 22-23 LCAP draft review. And Steve, your face isn't on camera though, so it's like the voice
It's not
on the
camera.
YouTubes.
I know. It's the mysterious voice.
You grab the board.
Yeah,
so
sure.
we can see your face on the YouTubes.
I think it'd be helpful for people to see you.
We just like seeing the YouTubes.
I do like YouTubes.
And the presentation is there you go.
I think I pared it down to what, 32 slots?
It's about an hour, 5 o'clock.
About an hour.
And your slides are not judged by the number, but by the length,
The text.
Mr.
There's
Corvink.
a lot of dark ink on this.
It's word count for Steve, yes,
word
right? See, Sean, actually, I wanted noted that Sean Berman made that comment first, not me.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
For the
yeah, so
record.
good evening, everybody. We're going to talk just a little bit about the LCAP. Just real quickly, it's been almost a decade since the LCAP has been around. It's kind of surprising. Back in the old days, schools were funded on something called the base revenue limits. The legislature kind of flipped it into the local control funding formula, and because they gave districts and charters local control, they wanted some accountability tied to that, so they created the local control accountability plans. That's why we're talking about it tonight. Again, so it's been around for quite a while. It actually is really closely aligned to our strategic plan. I think the legislature probably created the LCAP because a lot of entities did not have a strategic plan. So it's nice that we can take what the board has adopted and kind of align it and embed it in the plan in itself, which is helpful. So we can jump to the next slide. So the LCAP contains 7 parts, so it's a little 7-part mini-series that they floated down our way. Actually, there's a hidden 8th part at the very end. It's the instructions, and the instructions have to be included as part of the packet when it's put together, just as a little side note. But really, it's 7 parts. So the first part is the budget overview. Next we go into a supplement, and then kind of the meat and potatoes of it all is really the plan summary, and that's like the big document that was in your packet this evening. If we can click to the next one. So the budget overview will come next month. So tomorrow, Governor Newsom will come out with his May revise. There's a lot of folks who are really getting excited about that, me included. So when he comes out, facts and figures and numbers and all that kind of good stuff will get updated. That will allow us to update the budget overview for parents, which is kind of the first part of the LCAP. Second part of the LCAP is a supplement to the annual update, which is new for this year, which the board approved back in January of this year. So that get included as part of the second piece of the LCAP. And then the plan summary in itself was drafted. It is in your packet for review, and any comments can come back over the next month, and we would take those as we look to adopt the plan next month prior to the adoption of the budget. Something to note about in the LCAP is that we included some feedback from Wasp and the team as far as areas for growth. So it was great to get some initial comments back and like what we might want to consider adding into the plan as we look to work with our Wasp partners going forward. So the timing of their visit was perfect because we were able to include their comments into the draft plan that's before you guys tonight. So again, with that, I would take any comments right now or over the next month. As you have time, feel free to read through the LCAP and provide comments, and we can bring them back next month for action.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve. I too look forward to the May revise,
I think a lot of people are.
since there are already pieces slipping this evening that affect budgets statewide. So
Before we move on, are there any comments, questions, or concerns about the LCAP? Just trying to hear your voices. Okay.
I was about to ask.
Yeah. Oh, you were.
But if you think of anything, though, that come to you after this evening, feel free to email those comments to Steve. I'm sure he'll happily take them and incorporate or reach back out if he needs any additional information.
And ideally, if you do have comments a couple days prior to the next boarding, it would be best so that we have time to build them into just saying thank you.
So Wednesday at 5 p.m. won't work for you on the 8th?
Any time is fine, just
Oh.
preferably earlier than that.
No, I know. And I have, if anyone could, the packet does go out the Monday before, so the more time you can give Steve to make those edits, the better. All jokes aside. That brings us to our, so really, I would say the next two items, B and C, were the main work of the governance committee tonight. And they're on here to make sure that you're aware of these potential changes coming, to give you an opportunity to see them early and to provide feedback, as well as for anybody. I'm hopeful that people out watching this meeting tonight also feel included and understand sort of the things that we will be doing in June. So for those that don't know, June is the annual meeting that we have set out in our bylaws. It's the meeting in which we approve the budget for the next year. We'll approve LCAP. We approve, it's such a packed meeting. We'll do board and committee appointments. Basically all those different pieces that we do as our fiduciary duty as well as our board duties. A piece of that is we each year reach out to our legal counsel, Young, Mini, and Core, and ask for their feedback on any potential changes or other new things we need to do. Governance will do this throughout the year, but with the bylaws, that's really a June item. So we did do that this year. We have reached out to them. There is a draft in your packet with a lot of proposed changes. After meeting tonight in governance, I can tell you that that's not the final proposed list of changes. John and I are going to go through it. The key one, though, that I think that I just want to make sure everybody is aware of is there is a proposal to remove essentially the 2-term limit. So what the bylaws currently provide is that all directors can serve 2 full terms, 2 full 3-year terms, so 6 years total. And then step off for a year. They can still serve on a committee, but they can no longer serve on the board. And as part of our review process and looking at that and knowing all that the community has gone through over the last 2 years and wanting to make sure things are as stable as possible, and looking at how boards around us are constituted, I do believe that the governance committee will be recommending that we strike the term limit, keeping the terms. So board members will still be appointed to 3-year terms. There is still the opportunity within our bylaws. In Slack, there's still a chance to break up, right? In the fact that at the end of the 3-year term, obviously a board member, if it's no longer a good fit or would like to go on to new endeavors, that would certainly be allowed. In the same way, if the board felt like it wasn't a good fit or needed to take action, we don't have to wait till the end of the 3 years per our bylaws. There is a 2/3 vote requirement. But just so you know, we did discuss even taking out the terms, and that just didn't make sense in the end, because you do want to have those opportunities of reflection. There are some other cleanup changes in regards of how things are structured and different terminology, and that's the piece that Mr. Ike and I, or Dr. Ike and I, will really be going through to make sure that we have it as clean and ready to go for you in June. And we will also make sure that hits your board packets well in advance of the June meeting. You will have a lot to review. I'm such a broken record on that, but there will be a lot to review in advance of June, so we will make every endeavor to get that to you. It was interesting as part of the WASP process. We talked about our term limits, and even at that, there was some advice that we look at those, because this board's been working so hard to launch a high school. Does it make sense to let this board continue to do the work they're doing to make sure that fully launches? And we do have the opportunity each year to review the bylaws, to make changes. And so what I love about this organization is I feel like we are constantly doing iterations of ourselves. We're constantly growing and learning. We've brought in outside resources such as CSAA and Board on Track to help us do that work. And so I personally don't believe any of our guiding documents are fixed in stone, and that I'm super thankful to have everybody here to help make us better. And I would invite Michelle and Sean, sorry to have talked for so long, but if you have any thoughts you wanted to share, Janie too, just in turn, I just see them, I'm sorry, Janie. It's really weird because no one at home knows that how we face each other or who we're looking at. But I would love the opportunity for you to share, just sort of share what your thoughts are.
Yeah, thank you, Hope. I think you reflected a lot of the conversation that we had in governance already. I would just also say, too, that bringing it before the board is allowing a public process so folks can understand why and the reasons behind it. I think it's important to note, too, that after somebody steps down for a year, they can be appointed right back on. And so you're really just losing a year's worth of work that board member could be doing. And at this time, when there's so many things that lie ahead in terms of rebuilding the school community and, continuing to add grades to high school, having the continuity of folks that want to serve, are committed, and have shown the commitment is really important. So I would just add that.
Sean? Yeah. Well, and on that note, as board members have come on, everyone, I've been on forever, so I will admit that I have not felt this recently, but I have heard feedback that coming onto the board can be a relatively overwhelming experience when it comes to learning. I always think of our acronym list that the wonderful Mrs. Patel prepared for our charter document so that we could help people understand all the edu-talk, which I'm still learning. And so I know, Sean, you sort of raised that point during governance, and I just share it now, that you, as committee members, as board members, we invested a lot of time in learning about our roles, and we understand that there's a lot of growth. And then to just pause that growth for a year and then come back. It just was another piece, Sean, I thought you raised during governance that was a really valid point. Oh, no. Sorry, I didn't mean to highlight it that way. Janie, did you have any thoughts after our meeting?
I would just reiterate what you said, that being a person that's just come onto the board, that there is definitely a learning curve, and that to finally probably at your grade school, really wrap your head around what's actually really going on and really feel like you're contributing and it's a momentum. And to kind of stop that momentum doesn't really make sense. So which we talked about governance, so that's what
So with all that said, are there any other, if board members have had the opportunity to already review the draft, now, I mean, we'd love to take your feedback, if you have anything else you want to raise. Just this would be a time where I would just open the floor for other comments. Okay. John, would you please check for public comment on this
Sure.
item?
Seeing none. Wait, hold on a sec. Oh, I got a public comment.
On this?
Nah, maybe not. I'm gonna open it and find out.
Okay.
I'll tell you in just a second.
When we love all public comments, I did not mean to imply that one comment was more or less important than any other.
It is not about this, but it's an awesome comment. So when it's time, remind me to go back to this comment.
It is so. I mean, do we need like?
Well, it's okay.
It
It can wait. It can wait. I mean, it's
it
great.
can wait. Okay.
It's kind of a really cool celebration.
Again, you're important out there. But with that said, in all seriousness, this is just was on tonight for discussion. It's in our packet. Please review it. Happily take on comments. We want to make sure, like Michelle said, that our public understands why we're making this decision. We want to make sure our fellow board members understand why governance is recommending this position. And so please, we'll take any and all questions. There is not a bad one.
I was going to say that it is worth noting that we, in kind of researching term limits here in Natomas, that we are the only charter school with term limits currently. And in speaking with the other executive directors of, of charter schools, that board stability is phenomenal. Having a stable board during tumultuous times gets us through. This has been an incredible board for my entire duration here. Many of you have been here my entire time. And it makes sense. You talk to Tom Rutten, who's been in his organization with his board for a long time, and he's able to keep that school moving in a nice direction because everyone is mission and vision aligned. And this next topic is going to talk about succession planning and always ensuring that we are bringing on interested parties onto our board. So it's not about building a wall around the board, but the stability of removing the term limits makes sense.
Right, and that it feeds in so well to succession planning, because to have proper succession planning, we need to have more potential members in the tank, right? How do we get our community more and more interested in joining our committees and then joining the board to do this work? And so governance did start talking about that tonight. One piece of that puzzle is that the governance committee did form an ad hoc to meet with potential board appointees and committee appointees ahead of the annual meeting. We still have some legwork to do on that. We hope to create an objective list of questions that can be used for all candidates. But I also am excited because I'm hopeful that this process will lead to the opportunity to, what I'm calling a 360 evaluation, but to give feedback from our current committee members about what's working well for them and what would be better if. Like really bringing home the work that Sean and I did with the cultural code. That book study we did is paid off so much in terms of leadership of the organization. But how can we help committee members feel more powerful and more united in their roles and give them the skills to then advance to the board? And so that's not a great summary of all that we did tonight on that. Dr. Ike, can you help me out, or a committee member?
I think it's important that we recognize that we currently have one open seat on the board because we're typically constructed as a 9-seat board, although our charter allows us to go as low as 7 and as many as 11. So we can contract and expand as time goes on. Right now we're at 8, where we're at 9, and we do have some natural succession at the end of a term coming up right now in June. So June is that time where we would like to construct an ad hoc committee to interview interested parties in board membership. We prefer, obviously, committee membership prior to board membership because we feel like through our coaching with Board on Track that's the pathway. And we have some phenomenal committee members right now who've been doing incredible work on our separate committees. And so we would really hope that this ad hoc committee could do some interviewing of current committee members and potentially bring forward some names in June as potential additions to the board. Was that what we were looking for?
Yes, and I think one other nice piece too, at least you and I have talked about, and I don't know if it came up tonight, but with the ability to expand and constrict, the opportunity that if we know, for instance, that a board member needs to step away, how we can create an opportunity for that new board member to come in for a while first and
Yeah.
not train, I guess, but learn from the board member. We've also discussed the idea, is it time, sort of like when onboarding certificated staff, that we have a sort of a buddy system,
Yeah.
right? Where we assign a new committee member or a new board member a board person who can sit with them at meetings, kind of like how Janie, you and Shannon are sitting right now, right? To help fill in those gaps, to help expand the educational opportunities and learning the role. So we have a lot of ideas still in the hopper. They're not all quite written out for you yet, but that work is ongoing. I love those two pieces.
Yeah, yeah, I feel good about that. I think we've bottlenecked a little bit in onboarding. I'm excited about constructing that ad hoc committee to annually interview interested parties and determine how we, grow more people, which will help with the goal that Josh is always talking about, which is, hey, let's go out and get a bunch of people and bring them onto committees. Let's get people involved, and that's a great pathway to the board. Really fun.
Well, and I also want to make sure that, like, we're not the gatekeepers, right? So this
Yeah.
will expand the
Yeah.
number of voices that are heard in board appointments and committee appointments. And I think that only helps us because we have a lot of strong people here with a lot of experience that they can use to weigh and understand what the board needs, and who are, I trust all of you in your mission and vision alignment and knowing how to explain that to others when they ask. So lots of good things.
Very
Can I
exciting.
Can I add that I think a part of this too, I know we're talking a lot about like committee appointment and board appointment, but I think it's important to remind folks too that committees are open, right? And folks can come watch to participate and find which committee actually
Yeah.
they feel like they would add value to and which committee they have the most interest in. And as somebody who I started by attending a committee and attending board meetings and then getting on the committee and then working the way to the board, it actually helped to really set the stage and do some learning personally.
Yeah.
It was still a lot of alphabet soup, let's just be
Yeah.
honest. But, I think that was the way to test personally whether I had a commitment and a desire to move forward in this. And so I want to remind folks, and I think part of our succession planning should be sending out that reminder to people as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea of advertising. Hey, just come out and watch. If this is something that catches your interest, then jump on in and get involved. But you're right. These are open, publicly agendized committee and board meetings. We'd love to have you out here. There's an empty chair right next to Mrs. Husted right there.
Yeah.
Please come join.
And all our materials are on our website for members of the public to review and read. The other thing too, I think the reason why coming to the meetings, at least for me, is on there is board governance is such a different thing, right? That understanding of needing to stay at the 40,000 foot level, that you really do have 1,000+ students that you're looking out for, right? That it's the good for the whole, and not that it's just a hard thing to do. I mean, in my private life, right, I am legal counsel to a number of boards, and it's always interesting to watch them have to switch their hats and one day they're doing transit and the next day they're doing air quality. And yes, those two fit together, but there are times they don't fit together. And so coming and watching this process, I think is just super helpful and just learning if it's the right fit for you. Like, I personally knew very early on, no offense, Amber, that WAVE wasn't for me, but that made sense because of my governance background, right? My skill set felt better here. And so I'd love people to come and watch and not prejudge, and they might just be completely surprised about where their fit might be.
Yeah. Shop the committees, find your nerd category. Are you a governance nerd, a finance nerd? Right?
Grammar nerd.
Yeah, right.
I think
It's good.
grammar nerd might be the most important, right, Sean?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that, if there are no further comments with succession planning, you do, Josh, go.
Yeah, I found that just in talking with people, there's a lot of people out there, they just don't know we're looking. And I'm glad to hear we're setting up systems to, I love Wesley, my kids go there, da-da-da-da-da. Oh, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I do this and this and this. Oh, you ever think about volunteering in a committee? No, how do we do that? And I think to
Yeah.
just go, give me your name and number, and I'll forward it to whomever, and they can kind of take it from there. I think the biggest thing is just casual conversation. Hey, have you ever thought about helping out? And they just don't know we're looking.
Yeah.
We'll send them our way, Josh, because John and I will happily take them.
Yeah, I mean,
Send me one today.
Yep.
sent one this morning. Same thing,
Perfect.
background in education. Oh, you
Perfect.
thought about helping out? Yeah, I'd love to. Cool, let's do it. So, I mean, some of it's that simple.
Well, and we've talked about getting into the podcast or putting messages in the weekly, and so that's all stuff we need to plan out. But you're right. People need to know how to find us. And that's part of the goal, right, with the tables. So, yes, having a table to highlight our development committee's work, that's one piece of it. But there's also just letting our community identify our names and faces and what we do and being available to answer questions for them. And it also shows our commitment to the school and being around and being present. Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is less of like a comment on succession planning and more to anyone who might be interested in joining. It's like, I think that's all very true in terms of like staffing the board, but also if you just want to come and participate in a committee, there's also it's not like an automatic pipeline that if you come and volunteer or come and want to be on a committee for a bit that like you have to join the board. So I think you can go both ways. Like if you're interested in potentially doing more or not, we still want you to come.
And are there term limits on committees?
No.
So
Well, it's an annual.
right, so if somebody in theory wanted to come in and just be on a committee till they're done being on a committee, they could.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's an annual term with no term limit.
Yeah.
So do it for a year, drop off, or come back for the second year.
Or switch to another committee if it's just not a good fit, but you still want to help and you've figured out something else might be right for you, do that too. Like we really are open to helping our volunteers volunteer.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say, I mean, we talk about it all the time at development, like, one of our 3 goals is grow the committee. So every meeting, we're like, who do we want to help grow this committee? And I mean, if you haven't already, I would encourage every committee to do that, because just because you may not know somebody, doesn't mean Jamie doesn't. You know, doesn't mean Hope doesn't. And if we know what you're looking for, that can kind of help everybody just start throwing names in the hopper.
Yeah, I love it.
So is now a good time for that public comment before we do goals?
Oh,
or
yeah,
should
yeah.
we
Let's
wait?
do. I forgot. Sorry, I forgot about public. Yes, here it comes.
And if
Hold
there's
on.
any other comments, we can read those too.
Let's look at the public comments. All right, here.
It's like out there. It's like
I'll
oh,
hit
I
refresh.
have a
This
grade
is a good
like
one. It's a
waiting.
good one. It's a really good one. I'm gonna zoom it in though, just in case like Amy doesn't have her glasses on. I can't see it all. All right.
Why are you blaming Amy?
I don't know why. All right, here we go. Public comment. Here we go. Whoops. Ms. Grimaldi needs to be celebrated whenever we get the chance. I think now's the chance. She has been so enthusiastic and creative in her efforts to build a positive and connected high school community. She has worked really hard all year planning, organizing, and encouraging student involvement for all kinds of community building activities like spirit days, dances, and other events. She is a critical, appreciated, and highly valued member of our high school team. It is exciting to see her and the other wonderful team members building this high school together. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. And I will forward this to you. For those who are not in the know out there in YouTube landia, Mrs. Grimaldi is our high school Spanish teacher, but she's also our high school activities director, and she does a phenomenal job. She was at the International Festival. She's everywhere where kids are, and she's actually she is the Sunshine Committee at the high school. I mean, she is all the things. So this is a well-deserved opportunity to celebrate Mrs. Abigail Grimaldi. She is true Westlake through and through, bleeds blue. She's the real deal. So thank you for celebrating her.
She's hung most of Westlake. I feel like hung is not the right word, but like her vinyl cuts. Like,
Oh yeah, wherever you see a mission statement on a wall,
Whenever you
that's
see that,
Mrs.
that's
Grimaldi and that little
Grimaldi.
vinyl cutter.
right?
Yeah.
She has put our mission and our vision out there for everybody to see at all times as a reminder of what we're here to do. And I'm always.
Yeah. It's great stuff.
Shall we transition into board and executive director goals?
Yeah, I'll throw them up on the screen. I know you read them in your packet. We also have them in paper. Maybe take one if you want to just like scribble and scratch while we're in the meeting. Oh, sorry, Deb.
No, I was gonna go over it.
Got it.
That's fine.
Can I use your pink pen?
Stay in the room. Yes, you can.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I took a look at the November board meeting where we talked about goals originally. I went and looked at the February board meeting, and then again last month, and try to squish it all together. I am open to either editing live the ones we have in front of us to make more sense to you, or adding complete new ones. But we've been working on this now for several months, and I would love to get to the June meeting, have a set of board and executive director goals that make sense to this body, so that we can maybe go into some type of leadership workshopping over the summer. I'd like to invite everyone to some type of leadership workshop, but we had a little extended time to really dig in as a board and go back to some of that professional development, maybe even onboarding new members, and dig in around goals. So I'd like to start with board goals, if that's okay. You guys okay with that? So board goal number, I was going to put them on the screen for our viewing audience. I apologize. I'm in the packet right there. To the no.
Bottom one.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we now know that you were blind, so.
Yeah, without my glasses. It's only been 2 years. Okay. Board goal number 1 is based on strategic plan goal area 5. Westlake Charter Schools students will demonstrate social, emotional, and academic readiness as global citizens by embracing inclusion, diversity, equity, and cultural competence. And here is our goal. Regularly monitor and analyze student outcomes through the lenses of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So deliverables for this as a board goal would be to explore data such as academic achievement gap, discipline, attendance, or other factors as they apply to different student groups using the lenses of inclusion, diversity, and equity. Disparities should be evaluated regularly, and strategies should be developed to help address areas of concern. The idea is that we do a regular academic report, but one of our WASC goals and one of our impact committee goals is to develop a very consistent methodology for looking at our data, and that methodology should include looking for student group disparity, achievement gaps based on race, ethnicity, language. We can go as far as we want down this rabbit hole. It could be just academics to start with, because we've got that data and we're going to get good at looking at it. But maybe over time that data expands to, let's look regularly at parent data disaggregated, the parent survey data disaggregated particular ways, or maybe discipline data, or MTSS referral data. We wrote this goal to say we're just going to regularly monitor and analyze student outcomes, but we didn't define exactly which they were, because you might start with regularly monitoring NWEA. And let's always look at it for achievement gap around ethnicity. But then maybe we add, like we're in impact, we're working on adding metrics like what students are being referred to MTSS. What do we know about the impact of our amazing MTSS process? We talk about it all the time. We talked about it at NUSD board last night. And after the meeting, people came up to me and said, can I come visit your school? I want to see more how structurally your MTSS system works. Well, maybe we have MTSS data regularly embedded in our monitoring system. But a board goal would be for us to transparently, in our public meeting, to look at that data regularly on an agendized calendar, and then dive into looking at the data through the lenses of diversity, meaning disaggregate the data by diversity metrics, equity, looking at are there equity gaps, and inclusivity, which could mean a myriad of things, but it would open the door to types of analysis that you might want to do publicly here. Feedback, questions, thoughts, or concerns? I'm going to whip around. You can say pass. I'll start with Ms. Gibbons because her hand is up.
Yeah, this goal brings me a ton of joy.
I know.
Just seeing it. I really like the way you captured it. It really does take into account the conversation that we had around it. So I think this is a great goal.
Awesome. Yeah, and as we get to conversation number 3, we might go, okay, this is the 3rd time we've seen this piece of data. Can we extrapolate on this next time and start looking at it this way? Yeah. Sean, and you can pass if you want.
No. I also like the fact that this, as you said, it was not specific, so that it can start somewhere and change, or start somewhere and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, when we first started talking about this, I
Yeah.
thing that we never thought of looking at that.
One of the things that calls out in the strategic plan is that we create vertically aligned academic and social emotional assessments. And I know we on the edu side are like, wow, social emotional assessments kind of a little bit of a red flag 'cause it's really complex. But you could look at Healthy Kids survey data as a SEL indicator and start to, or a similar type survey, and just say, hey, here's 12 questions. Do you feel safe on campus? Do you have a trusted adult on campus? Do you have a friend on campus? And by those metrics, we could look at them through diversity, equity, and inclusivity as well. So, like, yeah, we could do anything we want. We can't do everything we want. We'll start somewhere and grow. Josh, or pass?
No, you answered my question. When I was reviewing it, I was just curious where we were gonna get the data.
Yeah.
And you answered that question, and I like the fact that we can be flexible with the data to make sure we're finding the questions we need to ask.
Yeah.
That we're finding the answers we're looking for, whether it's good or bad, to be able to adjust that to make sure it addresses the
Yeah.
whole campus.
Yeah, a couple of things I think we should be aware of is that often the conversation in edu around data feels like a little bit of a gotcha because people are looking for what you're doing wrong. It's just kind of, that's how it feels a lot of times in edu. I think we should always be looking, the impact committee talks about our impact from a positive perspective. So we may be looking at analyzing student outcomes through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and being like, hey, look at that, 3 times in a row, we can really highlight, here's something good that's happening in Wesley. So I love that opportunity as well. Also, the types of data is important. We've talked now at impact, what we talked about at the board, and we talked about with our Wasp visitation chair around like academic, obviously, hey, CASP, who's going to come out, we're looking at CASP data. We just aren't that school all the time, though. We're not like all in on CASP. Our teachers believe that their benchmark assessments, that they align to standards and they backwards design. As teachers, as designers, they feel benchmarks are legit. So maybe at some level, at some place, we start looking at benchmark assessment or grade distribution data. We might look at that. However, it's really important that we've always done here at Westlake, at least the 8 years that I've been here, is that we've never drilled down NWA, like down at the grade level or the teacher level, because there's no blame and shame and like, oh, let's put people's names up or grade levels up. You go, that grade level's not performing. Admin and teachers will know who that is, but at the board level, we stay up at the 40,000 foot level. So when we talk about what data we would use, we might use any data, but we will definitely couch it in the larger 40,000 foot perspective. MacGyver?
My thoughts have been captured, so I'll pass.
Jamie Leggett?
I again love the flexibility in the language, because as you dive into data, like things pop out and you're like, wow, well, this is why we're doing this, right? Because we didn't know this was happening. So then to be able to then focus on that, right? So to me, this is really exciting, and I'm excited to be a part of the board when we're doing this work. So I'm glad that this is one of our goals. You are saying we're starting, like our starting point is academics, like academic,
Yeah,
like that's our springboard?
It would be cool to have a new academic committee who wanted to just take on credit. But I think in impact, we'll not talk about we're starting manageable, and then we'll grow. And
Right.
I think NWA and CASP are a pretty easy like target, but we're looking at other metrics as well, like MTSS referral rates on the academic and potentially on the social emotional side. But we're still playing.
Okay.
Yeah. As I did parent survey tonight, I started to recognize, well, we already have a methodology by which we look at parent survey on, but it doesn't really break down by, ethnicity, race. It's just tricky, so, yeah, we'll play one step at a time. Shannon?
I agree. I think this is super important and exciting work, so I'm happy to see it as the first board goal. And then obviously, for Impact Committee, I love to see things that feel like, great, this is like a direct goal to inform a lot of our committee work and like a direct thing to report back to help the board on this goal. So it's like, great, give us some work to do. Align with our work.
And align with Wasp, so like, let's do things that aren't extra things, let's do things that are driving the things we're doing. So yeah, this is a gear in that machine. You wrote it, so.
Well, we did it together. I guess the only thing, and I would just sort of, I know you'll give one an opportunity more for a whip around, but in sort of a conclusionary type of remark, what I really like about this goal is it's finally getting at a piece that we set out in our strategic plan, but also that it directly supports our WASC work and that launch of the high school. it's not the only piece, but it's certainly an important piece to me that really will help that.
Yeah, it's really critical at the high school. I'm looking at the guy, right? It's really critical at the high school as we go, like, are you tracking progress toward graduation, AG completion rates, college acceptance rates, potentially college persistence rates? Like, this is important work. So the data that we start to see may look different than the data we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing K-8 type data, but we may start tracking, college readiness rates, right?
Well, it's like when you changed, you adjusted not my point of view, but when you brought up, I think was at Impact, college persistent rates, right? And it's one thing to be proud that 99% of your students go to college, 100% do, right? But how does that actually translate? Are you giving them the tools to not only go, but to stay and succeed? There's just so many pieces to that I loved that conversation we had.
The Cal State college acceptance rate out of local schools is incredibly high, right? Schools who are really pushing for college acceptance rates often boast 85 to 95% Cal State college acceptance rate. Sac State, which I'm a proud horn of myself, stingers up. I love that school, but it's rocking 12% four-year college completion rate, and their six-year college completion rate is still below 25%. So you're saying that you have an 85 or 95% college acceptance rate. That's awesome. What percentage of those kids are finishing that four-year college in 4 years? So really, really interesting. So we may consider tracking college persistence rate, starting with those 133 freshmen we have now.
I mean, I know it's down the road, John. I just mention it because this work leads, the benefit and curse of this work is it leads to a billion more questions. So every time Shannon, as chair, tries to get us focused in, like, but what about this? And so I say, John saying you can do, you can't do all the things. Like, I say all these things all the time because it's just such great work. And so I love that this is open enough to allow it to evolve.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. One goal, too, the Westlake Charter School Board will develop processes to improve recruitment, retention, and onboarding of new committee and board members to ensure the long-term stability of our governing board. I'm sorry, this is from College Station Board, Goal 2, Strategic Plan, Goal Area 1, regarding recruitment. So the deliverables are clear processes and procedures for recruitment of new board and committee members, including the screening process that places nominees into these positions. Other outcomes may include updated onboarding and training systems to ensure board members are continually growing in their abilities to govern. Particularly like this because you've already started it. You started it tonight, and I love it, so we're already knocking out a goal we haven't even approved yet. However, this is critical, right? This conversation on bylaws, this conversation on onboarding, this conversation on recruitment, this is it. This governing board is so important to this organization, and we did a lot of this work 6, 7 years ago with Board on Track, and we really stabilized this board at that time. And here we are all these years later, like, let's recommit. Let's recommit, let's double down, and let's do this work. If you look at these goals, it's really funny. Goal Area 1 looks a lot like the work of Impact. Goal Area 2 looks a lot like the work of governance. So if we look at these larger board goals and we're able to maybe hello, testing. My mic was off. It keeps turning off. Are they all turning off? Oh, okay.
Periodically, yeah.
Oh yeah. So before you talk, push your little button if the red light's not on. Thanks, Amy. Anyway, I'll do a quick whip around. Turn your mic on if you're going to. I know this goal may be like, well, we're already kind of doing it. Well, I kind of like that we're already doing it. Let's see it through and get it done well. And I think this deliverable regarding clear documentation or clear processes and procedures means that we memorize is the word, memorialize. Thank you, or codify these actual processes and procedures, including potentially recruitment. Like, I don't know that we have any document that says this is how we recruit. 4 times per year in the Westlake Weekly, we call for committee members, or, So I'd love to see this piece, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Whip around, and you're allowed to pass. Who wants to go first? McIver.
I will just echo that I'm a big fan of the processes and procedures, that it is not a vague, we will recruit new board members, that there is some work to put those things in place so we can do that work.
Love it. Love it. I'll whip the other way. I typically go to the right. I'm going to the left. Josh, you can pass or chime in.
No, I like all this stuff.
Good man.
We've moved on from talking about doing it, and now we've got the systems in place, and I think this is great. This is, turning that corner.
Yeah. Yeah, you can almost see this being a little chapter or a little guidebook, a little spiral bound, like, hey, we got 3 or 4 policies in here, a little calendar, a little table. There it is. This is how we do this piece. Sean?
Yeah, I like this. I almost, when I read this, I kind of thought of our little calendar that we have for finance, where
Totally.
it says these months we do these things, this month we do this thing, and then rinse and repeat, do it the
Yep.
next year. And I think that would be a big help, because right now it's just sort of like.
Your mic turned off. Sorry, I think it cut out. I think it did. I
It's
think
not,
the battery.
I thought maybe it was
I think
time
battery-
not talking, it just doesn't like me. Now
But yeah,
lost
yeah,
what
I
was
like
saying.
the rinse and repeat, the calendar,
Yeah.
the timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
So that was what I thought of for this.
Love it. Michelle?
It's great. Nothing to add.
Hope? Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, I just think this is like fundamental to the board and to all the things we talked about, and being able to have a stable board, be prepared for good times and bad. I think it's like so critical to have these processes for recruitment. I think it in some ways goes back to like the first goal to, or like just all the things we talk about in diversifying the board. I think the more that we're recruiting, the more we have a chance to make the board look more like the community and like the students. And then, I mean, as a former organizer, we always say ABC, always be recruiting. So love to see it.
Wouldn't that be ABR?
Yeah. What a,
Always be closing, always be recruiting. I don't know, but I love it. The goal by itself of recruiting is a really important goal, but it's always been an important goal. We just haven't done it. So nothing gets done unless it's a system, right? And so this idea of systematically ABC, always be closing. I love it. Janie?
I was actually going to say a little bit about exactly what she said, which is just that our board should mirror our community.
Yeah.
I think that it's awesome that this can be a part of that in recruiting new people.
Yeah.
And then that goes along with impact and like that, how everything, just like our strategic plan, everything really does fit together. And I love the idea that Sean said about having that like, like finance does so we always,
Yeah.
always out there and always in front, and we to make it important. So.
You know, the teacher board member memo is so simple. It's one page, but it says, in April, at the first staff meeting, announce this. On the 3rd Thursday in April, do this. And it's so systematic that it works every time. So like creating a system that says, at this time, do this. Boy, how nice would that be? Okay.
Well, our board policy does do that. So our 1608 does, I think it's 1608, does in the earlier draft match that timeline. The problem is that what we didn't take into account was, again, it's like that having more expansive people involved. So it's very you and I centric, and it shouldn't be, right?
Right.
It should be whole board centric.
Love
And
it.
so it's now taking sort of what we started to do in the staff memo and expand it and expand the players involved so we get a better, more diverse board.
Love it.
I'm pretty sure now I want to know if I.
Yeah, we'll find it. It'll be part of the process. We'll update that board policy.
It's in the packet. There is an updated version in the packet for your review.
Board Goal 3 is based on the Strategic Plan Goal Area 2, which is school and community collaboration. Westlake Charter School demonstrates that students are more successful when school and community collaborate. WCS will place collaboration at the center of the work that guides the organization, and the community will recognize that every voice is valued. So that's the goal Area 2. The board goal is the Westlake Charter School Board will make efforts to improve public access by greater involvement at WCS functions, focusing on outreach and supporting Westlake Charter School's efforts to help reconnect our community. Deliverables, these are opportunities for stakeholders to better understand the work done by the board, increase attendance and engagement in board activities, increased visibility of the work done by the board, and increased visibility of board members at community events. So this is about Josh is always talking about, making sure we're seen out there. And so it's getting board members to the International Festival at a table, and it's also getting people from the International Festival to come to the board meeting. It is making sure that somehow we systematize the way people see the work that is done by this board. Now that we're on YouTube, we get a lot more views than we have in the past. So that's already check mark step one. That's a movement in the good direction. But if we were to set internal goals, like we'd like to have more public comments, like thank goodness for Mrs. Johnson, right? So I don't know how you feel about that one, but I listened to you over these several meetings talk about reconnecting our community. But then there was the comment that like, well, John, that's more of an ED. Like you're out there reconnecting the community. What we're talking about is getting our board connected to that community. So it's not the work of the board that's going to reconnect the community. However, it does say here to support, make efforts to improve public access, focus on outreach, and supporting efforts to help reconnect our community. So by support, you pass a budget that allows us to have Google Voice or whatever it is. Then that's some work you're doing there. Whipping around on this one, pushback, edits, thoughts, questions, and
Can
concerns.
I add?
Please.
And start, I guess.
Start away.
So what I really like about goal 2, I personally feel like 2 and 3 dovetail together, right? Because the more we're seen and we have the opportunity to explain what we do to bring our community together, the more likely we are to help encourage or get people to want to come into the tank and participate on our committees and boards. So I just really like the fact that I almost feel like 2 and 3 are like in a way combined. Like we needed to separate them out for purposes of, establishing them. But I love that they fit together. I can't imagine having one or the other. I feel like we would need both.
I'll whip to the right. Shannon?
Yeah, I like just the language around improving public access. Because I think that really helps us to think creatively beyond what that used to mean, that it's like we're talking about with still being on YouTube. I think it allows us to embrace some of the old things that we liked, but also some of the new things that we like, and then think creatively about how to improve that access moving forward.
Yeah, I love that term access. Yeah, love it. Janie?
I have a comment. I agree with what said too, how they all kind of fit together.
Good. Ms. McIver?
I think this is a great goal, and I am looking forward to all of you chaperoning at the dances. So
Oh, good.
that'll be a fun
Saturday night,
board
everybody.
outing.
Saturday night.
Oh,
What's the dance called?
yeah.
The block party? Is it block party? Josh, any comment?
No, I think it's great. We're already doing it.
Yeah, it's the work.
That's another one we're already off and running on. I just hope we get to a point, at some time that we're identifying, like International Festival.
Mhm.
We kind of have a board visibility calendar, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
We've got these events coming up. We've got, this many slots to sit out there, and just that way as a board, we just kind of know these are the events we're at. This is what's going on, almost like the finance calendar,
Yeah.
The stuff that Steve does, just, at a much smaller level.
Again, though, like creating a calendar, creating action items under each goal, and checking those action items off and seeing how they align to the strat plan. That's what will help us move forward and also allow us to measure that we're moving forward.
Well, and developing systems to make sure that they happen
Yeah, I agree.
and spreading out that workload.
For sure. Sean?
I like the way this has morphed from it being that the board would do the connecting of the
Right.
school, which I was trying to figure out how that would work, and so I really like the way this has morphed because I think it's not that the other one was bad; it needed to be done. It just wasn't an us job, and
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic for an us job.
It's interesting. We're talking about doing a potential leadership workshop, a board workshop this summer, and I reached out to the WAVE president. You may have met her. And we kind of talk about what would happen if WAVE and the WAVE board and the Westlake board. Well, that speaks to this goal, like making sure we understand each other's missions and each other's work. And hey, what are you doing? What are we doing? Where do we overlap? And where do we support one another? That would fit right under this goal. As if we did something like that, it would help support this goal. Michelle?
I love it because I'm somebody that always did really good with homework, and I feel like this is like an easy, tangible assignment that we could all do. And I think just Shannon and I sitting out at the International Festival, we're not always on campus, so we thought of ideas on how to improve like visibility. Like, could we simplify the wording that says like got a question for the board, or something like that draws people in a little bit, or some bingo cards so people want to talk to us and engage with us, or, you know, a shirt or something. But, and then we got to know each other a little bit more too. So I love it because it connects us to the community, it connects us to one another. It was a great time.
It's a win-win. I love it.
Do we have any prizes for open house?
It's gotta be prizes.
I like the bingo.
Can someone find prizes? Like for people, like they could earn a prize. I don't know. I mean, open house is a week, less than a week away, so it might be quick turnaround. Yeah, it might be kind of fun to have something to hand out. Is all I'm trying to say.
I like the bingo card idea. I like that. Yeah, like go talk to a board member. Check bingo card, you know.
Back to school barbecue, if there is a back to school barbecue. No, I'm shutting up now. Okay.
Are you, those are not for action tonight, this is a discussion item, so, again, if you have any thoughts, before the June board meeting. If you have any thoughts before the June board meeting, you can send those revisions, up to the last minute. I know Steve needs his early, but you can send, I'm just kidding. Yeah, send them to me. Executive director goals. I think we talked about these. I don't think they've morphed too much, but let's take a look at them. Goal area 1 relates to strategic goal area 1, and that is focus on reconnecting our community by onboarding new leadership to embrace our commitment that all voices are valued within the systems of Westlake Charter School. So really focusing on onboarding new leadership. We're going to have new vice principal, new director, new principal, a lot of leadership onboarding for us this year. And it's critical to onboard these people to our shared leadership practices. So that portion of our strategic plan that indicates all voices must be valued, that's a part of that onboarding piece. Maybe I'm gonna read through all 3 of these, and then we'll look at them as a whole, and then I'll whip around. Because I think that one in isolation, you do or don't want, but maybe all 3 together. Let's take a look. The second goal area is really from strategic goal areas 2 and 3, academic and social emotional. And this one aligns to the WASP goal, aligns to the impact goal, and aligns to the board goal. So again, not creating more work, just doing the work we need to do. And this is develop academic and social emotional monitoring systems that demonstrate student outcomes, disaggregated to analyze growth toward readiness by student groups. What type of readiness? Academic and social emotional readiness, which is right there in our mission statement. Again, this is heavy lifting work because it is the foundation by which we'll analyze how we're doing. Strangely enough, I mean, we look at lots of data points, but now we're trying to pull them into one view and say, okay, let's have data that we can look at and monitor our student groups. I'd like to create something this year that then becomes systematically updated on a regular basis going forward, so that we always look at NWA the same way, we always look at the CASP the same way, MTSS referrals, behavioral referrals, whatever it is. We create a systematic way of doing that, and we've talked about that in the past. I think we're ready to execute on that, and with WASC here, it's critical to do so. I think goal area 5, continue to remain focused on the success of our high school expansion and the eventual development of a permanent high school facility. I think it's really, I don't know if you know this or not, but I used to direct school plays, and on opening night, it's really easy to stay focused, man. Opening night is super exciting. I mean, the curtain's going to go open. We've never put this show up live before. The curtain goes open, and the energy is tight. You can feel it. Opening night's amazing. Night 2, everybody's like, psh, we got this. And then they look like the Warriors last night who lost by 50 points. Like, things fall apart sometimes on night 2 because you're like, oh, we've done this once before. We had a great freshman year. We will not have a great freshman and sophomore year by itself. Like, it won't just happen. We want to stay focused on the expansion of this high school, one stretch of the rubber band at a time. So I would expect this goal to repeat itself at least until we graduate our first class, right? Every year we want to focus on the expansion of that high school. And obviously that's a part of that is focusing on that permanent facility. So pulling back up to the 40,000 foot level and looking at all 3 of those goals together, you can add something, you can take away something, you can combine something, you can try to squish more in there. We all know that there's more that exec's going to do. But like as far as like measurable pieces that are probably critical to the success of the organization, those might be good ones. I'll whip around. You could take it any way you want it. All 3 of them or one of them or any comment about any of them. Anyone want to start? Let it be known for the record, crickets were heard in the meeting.
I can start.
have
I
a
can
thought,
start.
but I don't always,
Yeah,
it's
share your
not
thought.
always good when I go first.
True. Anyone?
I can start.
Yeah, thanks,
The
McIver.
only thing, and I just want to think out loud, I'm like, push back on me, is in goal area 2, that social emotional monitoring system. It has been on the table for I know it's part of the strategic plan, but I'm almost thinking about our work in the impact committee. Like, is that realistic this year? I'm just,
That's a good question. It's a good question.
I feel like I want it to happen.
Yeah,
right?
how
So,
about
keep
how
it
about
in
how about we
there.
soften it up and say like develop academic social I almost want to say like approximate toward the development of you know,
Yes.
like, hey, take the initial first steps too, or
Yes.
develop initial academic and social emotional monitoring system, meaning that like
Or
Yeah.
even begin development.
yeah,
Begin development, yes.
yeah.
Begin development
Thank you so
of.
much. I don't want to take it off,
No,
because I don't want to
no,
be
no.
like, we're not doing it, but I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know if that is a realistic.
Yeah, you just don't want to give me a C- or a no grade at the end of the year because you're like, hey, you didn't get the social emotional one done. And you're like, well, we approximated toward it. Yeah, it is beginning the development of a long-standing piece. I think we'll knock the academic piece out of the park because we have that data. And as we, for example, work on being able to disaggregate behavioral data with the new referral system that we build for next year. That is FCL, so we'll be able to do some of that. There will be an approximation toward this, but you're right, it won't be like developed, done, put a fork in it, it's done. So yeah, I like to begin the development of or initiate the development of. Good call. Josh, whipping around to the left? Or McIver, I'm sorry, were there any other goals, areas that you wanted to riff on?
No, I think everything else is great.
Josh? All of our mics are dead. We are
Me.
pushing buttons. Thank you. Our mic monitor, Amber Houston, thank you so much.
Little did she know that was her role tonight.
Yeah, that's your role. That's right. That's right. Josh?
I like them.
Well said. Mike, good thing the mic was on for all that. Sean?
Ditto.
Okay.
Wow.
See if you get shorter than that.
I don't know how to triple ditto or
Yeah, triple ditto. You okay? You good?
Double
Hope?
dog ditto.
So, my thought I was going to share on goal area 5, and I like it the way it was, but the piece for me too, as we've talked about the doubling and then the doubling, is I'm concerned about people break, right? So I know you see as part of the success of the high school keeping the people who are doing it healthy too. Does that make sense? Like you talk about the pieces of it. The one that jumps out to me is, and I know you'll do it. It's so important that like we keep Baton healthy and happy and engaged, and you too, McIver, and everybody over at the high school, right? There's just that piece of it that as we ask them to double it next year, right? Like no good experience goes with all the work, but it's double the work now.
Yeah.
And how that plays, and I again, that is a piece of the success of the high school expansion. So I think it's already included.
Yeah.
I know but I just want to call out the fact that part of that work it's not just it's just there's so much more to success of our high school expansion
Yeah.
that we can't possibly put just words to. There's feelings and
Yeah.
all different pieces to that. Sorry.
No, it's
I
got.
love the goal.
I'm just thinking. You know, again, like we could try to squeeze that in there, but once you start listing what success looks like in that goal, you're like, oh, you got paper. You know, you didn't need more paper. So yeah, I think we agree that making sure our people are healthy is critical. Kindergarten through 12th grade, all of it. But there's also other pieces that go along with that. Developing dual enrollment next year is critical, right? We have 77 kids signed up for dual enrollment, I think, for next year out of 133. You know, you have the onboarding of new teachers. There's just so much to that goal right there. But yeah, I agree.
That's the only thing. Like, there is so much in my mind to that goal area that I even reporting on a piece of it, different pieces of it over the course of the year makes sense to me. That there isn't there isn't one grand outcome to goal area 5, right? There's not, like, to Lila's point about making sure that it's attainable and that we're not going to like do all of goal area 2 next year, that realizing that 5 will have many pieces to it and that they will all be important.
Yeah, well, and you'll be in on it too.
Right.
Because, certainly the facility piece is something I'll have to do in collaboration with the board. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
So that muddied it more than helped.
No,
But
it's
I
good though.
just-
It's good. I see where your heart is for sure. I think as the leaders of the organization, what we do well is put our people first. I think that's something we do. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's codified. I don't know that it's in any documents that yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting thought.
Well, I think we want you to put you first too, right? In modifying goal area 2, that's part of making sure
True.
that we also don't let you take on more
Yeah.
than any human can possibly do.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of, I guess, where my comment too about goal area 5 comes from, is that there is a lot in these 3 goals, and I think the board needs to be mindful of how much work this is for
Yeah.
you.
The 2 is the scariest one thus far because it's really a from scratch scenario, whereas 1 and 1 and 3, but it says 5. I apologize. 1 and 3 are ongoing, work that's already on the plate for sure. Shannon?
All good.
Oh, I love all these ditto, all good. Yep. Janie?
No, I would agree that the goal area 3, 5,
Okay.
is huge.
Yeah.
And I feel like that could be just one goal. I know that you prioritizing through this is I don't know, that was just a really big area. So, and like you said, goal area 2 could also take up all of your time too. So and not to say that it should be adjusted, but it's just, we're being mindful of how big those undertakings are.
Yeah, I just, and I use the words continue to remain in goal area 3 because it's let's be honest, I mean, that's what I do for a living right there. On a daily basis is monitor the success of our high school and our K-8 programs. Just a reminder of the sports and all the, but yeah, it's big. What do we got? I got 220 days to do it.
I was just thinking of a time when it used to be easier, when it was get charter done. Which, right, it's a real easy grade, because, hey, we got it in, we got it passed, hey, you get an A.
We're sitting in one of the previous goals, right?
Yeah.
We are.
Hey, build this joint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't wait to get to that next one.
So as we've grown and matured and expanded and gotten so much better at what we do, it's, in my mind, it just blows my mind at how much more difficult the goals have gotten.
Yeah.
Because we expect more of ourselves.
Yeah.
And you expect a lot of yourself. And so, and I 100% appreciate that. I do worry that this is a lot for next year.
Well, the only one you could take off of there, if you want to take one off, is number 2, because I'm already going to do 1 and 3. So if you took off 2, all the other goals we've talked about tonight fall apart. So just be there and cheer me on. Bring coffee. We got this, team. Yeah, I love it. You guys are okay, other than it maybe breaking me, which it's not going to. But it's not too much. We're okay with these goals. Cool.
The question, I mean, do we have something specific that says these have to be accomplished in a year? Or are they just kind of long?
yeah.
I mean, I know we
That's a good point.
want the focus to be there, but I don't see anything that says we've got to do this in the next 12 months.
Well, and I guess that was kind of what I was trying to get at.
Okay,
Like when we do an AD evaluation in 9 months from now, right? I think it just behooves us to remember this conversation and the fact that the deliverables aren't as fixed as some other deliverables are, right? And so knowing John does an amazing job of presenting to us each board meeting about his strategic actions, right? Remembering those and then understanding and just remembering how broad these are and taking that all into account.
It's good. Well, thank you for the feedback, team. I'm open to, noodling as we go forward. So if you wake up tomorrow morning and there's a comma missing or a hyphen, you let me know. But if there's a thought that we need to put in there, let me know. And I'll take the feedback on the beginning, the development of, or initiate the development of in goal area 2 and work on that.
So am I hearing you're open to a goal then about whether or not we should continue the use of the Oxford comma?
So I've adopted the Oxford comma.
Sorry, couldn't help myself.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, Sean Berman will be leading that task. No. So we'll go ahead and we will have a closed session, but we're going to skip that for a moment so that we can conclude the rest of our business and let people go and not just hang out on the YouTubes and wait for us. Future agenda items, I'll be the broken record. There is a lot for June, so please, set aside some time for some packet review. We will get that all in there as soon as we can. I wouldn't be surprised if it trickled in over the course of the next month. Reflection. We didn't get to do this in committee today, so we're going to do it now. John, would you lead the whip around about what worked well or what would be better if?
Yeah, just a reminder, reflection is about what would have been better in this meeting. Meaning I personally would have been more productive if, or what worked well. This meeting worked well for me because sometimes we misuse reflection as like hey, I want to celebrate something about, really try to make it about the process of the meeting, making this meeting a better meeting every month, and that's why we reflect. So how can we make this meeting better? By either saying, hey, this meeting could have been better if, or this meeting was good for me because, and then we'll repeat that action. So who would like to go first? You do one or the other. You don't have to do both. There was a day when we did both. So yes, Shannon?
I think this meeting worked well, that there was quite a bit of information, but it was packaged very well and succinctly, especially at the beginning, for us to just kind of do our homework, come prepared. There wasn't a lot of discussion, but then the later parts, even though we've reviewed a lot of this, I think in the whip around setting, it was still good to hear from everybody. Hear from everybody, but still get a lot done where we didn't necessarily need to talk about everything because it was all straightforward.
Love it. Janie?
I thought it worked well. I love having this paper copy in front of me, as much as I love the digital. I enjoy having something to look at, and I love that over the last few meetings, we've kind of built up, and that I love seeing how we grow our thoughts each time, right?
Yeah.
And then we get here, and I feel like it just feels good to get to a point where and this is done, and then we can move on to our next thing. But I like seeing the work over time.
Yeah, I love it when we iterate. Hope say we always iterating, making it the next version of ourselves. I love when the work iterates. Hey, just as a note to all board members, Amy Wells and I work for you, and we're 100% open to printing things out. So if you are like, I just always want the packet in paper, including John's slides. It doesn't, if you want them, let us know, and they will be waiting for you when you get here. So if you're a paper person, or if you want them in advance, we'll print them out for you.
Budget
for paper.
Not the whole thing, but it's the Howard Chan question. Can I have Howard's budget documents, please?
I said, me and Amy are willing to help you. Hope looked right at Steve. Goes right to poor Steve.
Well, I know.
Steve, would you like to reflect on how this meeting worked better?
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Pointing back to the last comment. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think just reflecting on one of the core values of joyful learning. I think back to this meeting tonight. I would just say this is a joyful board meeting. There was some laughter. There was some humor. If you've ever been part of the board, not all boards function like this. So it was, a joyful meeting, and a lot was accomplished. So.
Yeah. McIver?
I will just agree with what has been said. I felt like it was a great meeting. It went well because the committees put work in to present it, and I appreciated seeing the revisions to goals, so that it was great to have that conversation.
Very good. Josh?
How hard would it be to do one of these at the Oasis? Do you think that it would? I mean, is it doable?
Is that a reflection? I think this meeting would have worked better if we were outside in a lovely umbrellaed atmosphere.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, maybe not the annual meeting, but if there's a way to do it, would it increase participation from the community if we did it outside of, not every time, but just something to mix? I don't even know if we can do it with needing a screen and all the technology.
Yeah,
But
it's all doable. We did an awesome coffee talk out there one night that was rocking. So I'll just frame it in a form of reflection. This meeting might have worked better for me outside in the Oasis with moving technology and finger foods. And little drinks with umbrellas. Yeah, thank you, Josh.
We can have
Yeah.
umbrella drinks?
Well, appropriate ones.
You can have a drink
But the
under
umbrellas
an
are
umbrella.
appropriate.
Is that an umbrella?
I guess that counts.
Sean, what worked well or what would have made this meeting better?
Along the same lines of how a lot of this was iterative. It was our multiple look at things. I liked being able to just say, I was good with this and not, feel the need to have long thoughts about it if it didn't require it.
It's a shout out to the whole board. It's a shout out to Hope Golick, the iterative work and a shout out to Amy Wallace for keeping really good notes and for YouTube for storing our actual thoughts and went and watched us. We're awesome. Michelle?
You're good.
I'm going to piggyback on what Sean said. What works well for me in this meeting that I hope we carry through is that when we're prepared and we've already looked at the materials, it makes the conversation go faster versus us having to pull up every document. So that works really well time-wise for me.
Yeah. AW playing? It would work better. It would work better if you were less cold. I'd like to reflect. I've said this reflection more than once. What works well for me in this meeting is when I hear your voices. I know there's a lot of times when I talk, sometimes for a whole hour.
What?
Never.
And
When did that happen?
I have things that I gotta say sometimes. But honestly, this is a wonderful board, and I love that we're prepared. And when you speak to the topics, it helps inform me. And I'll talk to these goals. These goals were only these goals tonight because I went back and looked at the YouTube. I went back and looked at the minutes, and I heard your voices. And when your voice comes out as a single body, we are producing content as a single body. That is what makes board work important and impactful and representative. So yeah, I love it when we talk. And tonight you spoke words into the work. So thank you. Hope.
I'm really tempted to do it to a ditto because you and I are on.
Always on the same page.
Well, we're certainly on the same page tonight about this topic. And I think you see it. And so I would reflect that in the board work, you've seen this push from John and I to have more board involvement, to figure out ways where it's not just the two of us talking, where all your voices are a part of it, because we can, if we just diversify for diversification's sake, but we don't hear anyone else's voices, what's the end goal of that? So the more you talk, and I really appreciate that tonight. And then I guess that's part of the reason why I'm harping so much on being ready for June. It's just that the more we all talk, the better the work is, and the better things go. And so thank you for tonight and for being prepared and speaking up. And I look forward to that continuing.
Just gonna look and make sure there's no comments before we go out.
I still have to do the closed session announcement.
Oh,
too.
copy. Hold on. I don't think. Yeah, I don't see any. We're good.
Perfect. So now the board will, I'm assuming people would like I don't anticipate closed session being a particularly long closed session, so I'd like to go straight into closed session if that's fine with everybody. We are going in under conference with real property negotiators. I do not anticipate any report out. So with that, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 8:49.